The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anna Zylik. I am with ICF, and we are the vendor working on behalf of the sponsors of Energize Connecticut to bring these passive house and all electric homes trainings to all of you. So thanks for joining us today. We will be recording this training and we will make this available afterwards. These trainings are at no cost thanks to the sponsors of Energize Connecticut and are part of a partnership with Connecticut Passive House. A quick reminder that as part of this training and workforce development initiative, we are offering a 75% cost reimbursement for individuals pursuing either FIAS or fee professional accreditation. So this includes the cost of the trainings and the exam, and once you become certified, we'll work with you to process the 75% cost reimbursement. So if you have any questions on that, please do not hesitate to contact us. And with that, I will pass it over to Nate, who's also with ICF, to talk about the Passive House and All Electric Homes building incentives.
Thanks, Anna, and hello, everyone. We're excited to have you here for today's webinar. In addition to the no-cost education training series and the professional accreditation reimbursements, sorry here, guys. The sponsors of Energize Connecticut also offer robust incentives for builders and developers who choose to pursue passive house certification in multifamily projects with 5 or more units. Can you go to the next slide, please? Passive house incentive design for Energize Connecticut is shown here on the slide and includes pre-construction incentives for feasibility studies and energy modeling and post-construction incentives for passive house certification. Our goal is for everyone involved in multifamily construction in the state of Connecticut to be aware of these incentives. So for anyone interested in learning more, please visit our website or contact us directly at the address on the next slide, or sorry, on this slide as well, yes. As for questions during today's session, please feel free to use the chat function throughout, and Ann and I will return them to Asa. And with that, I will turn it over to Asa Foss for today's presentation.
All right, thanks everybody. Appreciate being here with you guys this afternoon. My name is Asa Foss. I'm a member of EPA's Energy Star residential branch. So you may be aware, but there's a lot of excitement around Energy Star right now. Not only has our core Energy Star program been tied directly in the new energy efficient new home tax credit, numbered 45L, and we expect that to drastically increase the use of this core program for above code builders and developers. But we are also launching this new higher tier certification program called Energy Star NextGen. So in order to address the challenge of climate change, we know that residential new construction must reduce operational emissions. This requires us to expand beyond increasing energy efficiency in homes and apartments to make more significant strides in the adoption of strategic electrification, connected equipment to aid in demand response, and an expansion of electric vehicle charging capability. EPA believes that Energy Star residential new construction can play a key role in enabling these needed changes while also ensuring that the program continues to deliver the associated benefits that partners and consumers have come to expect, such as comfort, durability, and improved indoor air quality. While improving new homes and apartments alone will not be enough to meet the nation's climate goals, it is a critical component to success. New construction represents a 100-year opportunity to build in efficiency and decarbonization, with many features being difficult and costly to retrofit later. Further, the ability to make significant impact in new construction is surprisingly high. We estimate that by 2050, more than 20% of homes have yet to be built. Our goals for Energy Star NextGen homes and apartments are to define the major elements and technologies necessary in new homes and apartments to support operational decarbonization, to recognize builders and developers for incorporating these elements into their homes and apartments, with a government-backed label, marketing, and awards, to create a national platform for training tools to support the industry achieve success with decarbonization technologies, and finally, to provide state and local policymakers, including utilities, with a national standard for efficient home construction, coupled with decarbonization features that could be used as a model for the development of future policies and incentives. Our new certification program is not intended to be a replacement for the core Energy Star residential new construction program, nor the U.S. Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready Homes program. Rather, it will work in conjunction with these established programs to provide an additional level of recognition for those builders that choose to pursue it to achieve significant emissions reductions. The new program will rely on the same energy efficiency levels specified in the Single-Family New Homes National Version 3.2 or Multifamily New Construction National Version 1.2 program requirements, plus a set of specific, achievable, and market-ready prescriptive requirements for connected space conditioning heat pumps, connected heat pump water heaters, electric cooking, and EV charging capability. Each measure required in NextGen can be independently verified by the same home energy raters that currently provide verification for the Energy Star residential new construction program. These new requirements can be documented by the rater using a simple one-page checklist. One important note that I'd like to draw your attention to is that we are not requiring all electric homes or apartments or banning gas. Instead, we have framed our requirements around what is present in the homes and apartments rather than what is prohibited. Another consideration is that program sponsors can always add requirements to our program that meets their needs, while still retaining the label and certificate. Program sponsors cannot remove requirements. This lens helped us focus our certification on what we believe to be the most important national requirements for decarbonizing the operations of residential new construction. Over the course of the next hour, I'll cover each of our 5 sets of requirements. The first 3 directly significantly reduce the home or apartment's emissions, while EPA sees electric cooking and EV charging as key enabling technologies in the strategic electrification of homes and apartments. After covering the technical requirements, I'll preview some of the messaging that the team is working on to promote this Energy Star NextGen program. I can then summarize the results of initial emissions modeling analysis that we've done, and we should hopefully have some time for a brief discussion. And as Nate mentioned, if there are any questions throughout, just type them in the chat and they'll interrupt me and ask them. In case you're moderately unfamiliar with why there's so much momentum around heat pumps, it's because using these highly efficient technologies for space and water heating are the only realistic way to substantially reduce greenhouse gas emissions in buildings. This graph compares the emissions of a furnace, shown in orange, with that of a heat pump, shown by the 2 blue lines. In this table, we're comparing the emissions intensity of an extremely efficient 98% AFUE furnace to an emissions intensity of a moderately efficient heat pump with an average annual COP of 2.5. A COP of 2.5 is roughly equivalent to an HSPF of 8.5, which is less efficient than Energy Star heat pump minimum requirements. The y-axis is showing pounds of CO2 equivalent per kBTU of heat delivered by the equipment. So the orange line at the top is natural gas emissions, accounting for both upstream and downstream emissions. The historical emissions are from eGrid, shown in dark blue, using average annual emissions for the national electric grid. The projected national average emissions are in light blue, taken from a new DOE tool called Cambium. The gist is that this is a middle-of-the-road prediction for future emissions of the electric grid. So what do we see? Natural gas emissions don't change over time. On the other hand, electricity is projected to continue to get significantly cleaner over the coming years. And in case you're wondering, doing the same analysis for heat pump water heaters will yield nearly identical results. So this is a blunt demonstration, but hopefully it helps answer any lingering doubts you have as to why Energy Star NextGen is all in on heat pumps. So now, how is electricity getting cleaner? Because we're in the middle of a renewable energy resolution. This is the chart from the US Energy Information Administration's Annual Energy Outlook 2022. This is their projection for renewable energy electricity production of their reference case which reflects current laws and regulations prior to the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act. You can see that renewable energy generation nearly doubled in the past 12 years, and this conservative forecast predicts renewable electricity production to more than triple again over the next few decades. And recent DOE analysis has confirmed that if we want to decarbonize the operations of the built environment, we must address the gas used for residential space and water heating. Cumulative residential direct emissions are shown in the first column, where residential space heating is dark red and residential water heating is shown in peach. As you can see, eliminating or significantly reducing the use of gas for these two end uses will have a major impact.
Asa.
Oh, and here's my, yes.
Someone was asking if there are additional incentives for geothermal HVAC.
Incentives. I'm not sure what is meant by incentives, but we'll touch on geothermal in a little bit when we go through space heating.
Okay.
But I can't talk about any financial incentives in Connecticut to that. I can talk about modeling incentives, and this is the program requirements for geothermal. So whoever asked that question, feel free to clarify in the chat. So my final preamble is another data point that I recently learned. Did you know that residential natural gas appliances emit more NOx than gas power plants? I certainly didn't. This really did blow my mind. And if you include commercial gas use of 143,000 tons, the gas used in buildings produces more than twice the NOx pollution as gas power plants. And if you aren't too familiar with this pollutant, the oxides of nitrogen are one of EPA's 6 criteria pollutants because of their impact on public health. Nitrogen dioxide is the most common oxide in this family. Breathing air with a high concentration of NO2 can irritate airways in the human respiratory system. Such exposures over short periods can aggravate respiratory diseases, particularly asthma, leading to respiratory symptoms such as coughing, wheezing, or difficulty breathing, hospital admissions, and visits to emergency rooms. It can also lead to children developing new asthma. So in short, we want to keep NOx out of our homes and communities, which requires us to not burn gas in buildings, or frankly, automobiles for that matter. Okay, so now that I've covered a bit of background, next I'm going to cover the 5 sets of program requirements. For each of the features, I'll first cover the technical requirements, and then I'll hit on some of our consumer-facing talking points. Did we lose the screen?
Yes, we did.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay. Slideshow, resume slideshow. All right, here we go. Back to better. Federal government spam filter didn't like my presentation, apparently. Okay, back on track. So to earn the Energy Star NextGen label, homes and apartments must first meet Energy Star's National Version 3.2 or Multifamily Version 1.2, even if these more rigorous specifications are not implemented in the state for the base Energy Star program. These programs are at least 10% more efficient than the 2021 International Energy Conservation Code. This is a great place to land the highly efficient backstop for many reasons, including that Energy Star is required to be cost effective, where the annual utility savings more than cover the mortgage costs of energy upgrades. And many above code buildings will be looking at Energy Star already because of the new 45L efficient new home tax credit worth up to $2,500 per home or dwelling unit. Is tied to Energy Star version 3.2. And as high performance builder and energy rating community is looking at this, there's a lot of preferences for programs and codes to align, rather than each jurisdiction having their own unique requirements. And program sponsors, including what the Treasury and IRS have done, is relying on EPA to fully manage the program, including technical partner support and quality assurance. And to go a little bit more into the energy savings, most of you are probably a little bit more familiar with Energy Star version 3.2, which is at least a 10% improvement over the 2012, 2015, and 2018 energy codes. The 2021 IECC is on average about 9% more stringent than these energy codes. So we had to create a new version to maintain the Energy Star brand promise of 10% over code, which is what Energy Star version 3.2 is on the single family side. So what does this mean in terms of energy efficiency savings for NextGen and our Energy Star version 3.2 requirement? It's at least 10% more stringent than the 2021 ICC, which is 20% more stringent than the 2012, 15, and 18 energy codes, and 30% more efficient than the 2009 model energy code. These are some pretty significant steps up in efficiency for above code builders. Fortunately, there's a big carrot out there to help the building community achieve Energy Star version 3.2, which we can go over a little bit more in a bit. In terms of how we plan on messaging Energy Star in this requirement, we're looking at really leaning into our branding of the Energy Star New Homes program already and not deviating from that. And again, really leaning in also on the trust that the consumers have in the Energy Star Blue level for products, appliances, and buildings. All right, so Energy Star version 3.2 is how we address the all-important moderately above code efficiency box, which not only lowers the utility bills of occupants, but enables demand responsive heating and cooling to be even more effective. Which brings me now to heat pumps. So our requirement says that homes and dwelling units must be equipped with a properly sized 2-speed or variable speed Energy Star certified heat pump, including geothermal heat pumps. They have to meet our connected criteria or include an Energy Star certified smart thermostat. There are a handful of additional requirements for heat pumps, which I will briefly touch on. We're requiring multi-stage or variable speed technology because it offers the consumer amenities of being quieter while delivering more consistent temperatures for greater comfort. This better ensures a positive occupant experience with their heat pump. And for projects in climate zones 5 through 8, such as Connecticut, the installed heat pump must meet the Energy Star cold climate requirements. This requirement is designed to ensure that heat pumps perform well and remain efficient at low ambient temperatures. Another significant and impactful requirement is that energy raters must use our HVAC grading track. Projects may not use the alternative HVAC credential track that is permitted in the core Energy Star program that's been around for the last 12 odd years. Heat pumps are particularly sensitive to proper installation. And since this technology is a mandatory feature in NextGen, we believe that it's critical to have third-party verification of their installation with direct testing of installation quality by a trained and certified energy rater. HVAC grading provides greater assurances that systems are installed as designed, and they can earn projects a couple of ERI points in their energy models as an added bonus. Each installed heating and cooling system must also meet EPA's connected criteria or be controlled by an Energy Star certified smart thermostat. These connected criteria identify products that provide energy reporting, remote consumer access, and grid services through connection to other systems inside and outside the home. This allowed the heat pumps to be demand response capable. And finally, for this specification, we're allowing dual fuel heat pumps where gas is used as a backup heat source rather than an electric resistant coil. We feel that this is important, especially for the building community that is unfamiliar with heat pumps, to give them the air quote peace of mind of having gas to provide heat on the coldest of days. And looking at the latest Census Bureau data for 2021, they report that 38% of new single-family homes and 47% of multifamily buildings installed heat pumps for space heating. And while they're a mature technology for warmer climates where a majority of homes are built, Heat pumps are a little bit more cutting edge for colder climates, which is why we put in place the Energy Star cold climate designation requirement to ensure better performance at these lower outdoor temperatures. There are quite a few features that homeowners and renters should like about Energy Star heat pumps. First and foremost is that properly sized multi-speed systems that have sufficient return air will be quieter. For me, that's really number one. I personally get really annoyed when I hear a loud fan blowing air. I'm sure I'm not the only one here today. Occupants should also appreciate the remote access capability that will allow them to control their systems from anywhere and show them how little electricity they are using with their efficient Energy Star heat pumps. These benefits are driving our primary talking point on this feature, which you can see on the screen. Energy Star NextGen homes and apartments allow you to take control of your comfort with a quiet and responsive heating and cooling system. Any questions on heat pumps come in before I jump to heat pump water heaters?
Just one, one involving geothermal anyways, was why do you know why the projections back a few slides for geothermal was so low moving forward into the future?
Oh, I don't have a good sense on that one, no. No, sorry.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thanks, but no thanks. All right. Our next requirement is for efficient water heating. Energy Star certified heat pump water heaters are up to 4 times more efficient and use 70% less energy than a standard model, saving hundreds of dollars every year in energy costs. NextGen requires that all homes must be equipped with a properly sized Energy Star certified heat pump water heater that again meets EPA's connected criteria. Water heating is an ideal demand response opportunity because connected electric water heaters can shift up to 1 kilowatt per demand response event through preheating and have the communication ability to load shift and respond to demand response events. We also want to ensure good performance, which includes installing a quiet unit with a large enough storage tank. The minimum tank size ensures that a majority of water heating is done by the heat pump rather than the electric resistance coil. And since heat pump water heaters may make more noise when operating than some conventional electric water heaters, and they tend to be on par with gas water heaters, EPA has included a sound rating limit of 55 decibels for heat pump water heaters that are installed within a dwelling unit's occupiable space. This requirement will preclude louder units from being installed in locations where occupants would frequently hear them. In terms of messaging, we will try to make the invisible a little bit more tangible with this framing. A typical water heater uses more energy than a refrigerator, clothes washer, dishwasher, and dryer combined. And also, connected features allow for remote adjustments and alerts from anywhere and enable residents to further lower electric bills through optional participation in utility demand response programs. All right, moving on. Energy Star NextGen is intended to be forward-looking, and the adoption of electric cooking appliances has been identified as a key enabling technology for the overall decarbonization of residential new construction. EPA believes that incorporating electric cooktops, especially induction, into homes and apartments that earn the Energy Star NextGen label can help to demonstrate to product manufacturers that there is increasing market demand for these high-performance products, which will in turn help drive down prices. Induction cooktops deliver efficiency benefits and consumer amenities that should be highly desirable, yet many home buyers in the United States are unfamiliar with this technology. Fortunately, major appliance manufacturers are already making induction a strategic centerpiece of their lineups, which is why it's not surprising that sales of induction ranges increased 40% in 2022 over 2021's levels. You're likely familiar with many of these benefits of induction cooktops. They boil water in half the time of gas, they're cool at the touch, which reduces the burn risk. The cool service also makes them easier to clean and allows cooks to use a cooking service as additional counter space. They also offer precise temperature control. There's also growing evidence of significant health impacts of getting gas out of the kitchen, which we mention in this benefit statement of children living in homes with gas stoves have a 42% increased risk of having asthma, according to a meta-analysis of 19 studies. One additional thing I want to say here is the initial version of our spec, which we released in May of last year, required induction cooktops. And we had a carve out that projects that received a government subsidy, also known as affordable housing projects, only needed to put in electric resistance cooktops rather than induction. However, over the last few months, the Energy Star products team has launched the process of doing a Energy Star certification or Energy Star label for electric ranges and stoves. The original plan of that team was to have that only be for induction, but the ranges of efficiency of induction and electric were somewhat similar. So they, again, somewhat surprisingly, found that of the models that they tested, induction and electric cooktops had a somewhat similar energy performance. So it looks like the new Energy Star specification for residential cooktops is going to be including both electric hardtops as well as induction cooktops. So that is why we, in the last month or so, as the Energy Star resident new construction team, modified the requirement from exclusively induction to induction and electric cooktops. And we'll have more on this formally announced in the next month or so. All right, so let's now switch to what we believe to be another sellable feature that we anticipate many home buyers and renters will love, which is, of course, EV charging. As most of you probably know, transportation is the largest contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in the United States. Vehicle electrification is essential to mitigate the increasing impact of climate change. With the predicted growth in the electric vehicle market and a majority of EV charging expected to occur at home, we believe that the inclusion of EV charging capability is a critical component for us to include in this program. Making buildings ready for EV chargers can reduce future installation costs by 75% and should make buildings that include EV charging capability more desirable to potential home buyers and renters. So, to earn certification through NextGen, a home or multifamily development must include the EV charging capability as follows. So, single-family homes and 2-unit dwellings must be EV ready if private automobile parking is provided. And this is our definition for what EV ready is. So basically a powered 208 or 240 receptacle installed in the garage or within 3 feet of the driveway or dedicated parking space. And the electric service panel includes a 40 amp or greater breaker, and the panel directory identifies this branch circuit as electric vehicle charging. This aligns with, as an aside, the Zoo Energy Ready Homes version 2 requirements for EV charging and EV readiness. So, multifamily buildings, as well as single-family units without private parking, must provide either one EV-ready parking space for each dwelling unit, as defined on the prior slide, or they need to install Energy Star certified EV chargers for at least 10% of parking spaces, capped at 5, and have an additional 20% of spaces be EV capable to enable the future installation of EV chargers. Energy Star certified EV chargers reduce electricity use by 40% when in standby mode, which is about 30 kilowatt hours per year per unit. Energy Star also encourages the use of open standards, which helps to develop the industry by fostering interoperability. And all Energy Star certified EV chargers must meet a safety certification, which is unfortunate because currently many EV chargers are not certified and could be dangerous as a result. And projects that do not provide parking, of course, do not need to install EV charging infrastructure. Our team felt that it was really important to have at least a couple of EV chargers installed in the shared parking lots. This demonstrates to the occupants that EV charging is available, and as demand increases, they can go to the building owner or property manager and ask for increased EV chargers, and that installation should be easier because conduit has already been installed that runs continuously from the electric room or electric panel, terminating within a few feet of a good portion of the development's parking spaces. In terms of messaging, these are our primary statements that we'll be leading with. So in homes with private parking, a heavy-duty power outlet is wired and ready to charge an electric vehicle. And even if you don't have an EV today, having the necessary wiring installed or access to a charger will make it quicker, easier, and less expensive to go electric if you're ready to make the change in the future. All right, so to go a little bit more into messaging and marketing, we're now working on finalizing the messaging for this program, and we're focusing on these 5 key themes. So depending on the audience, builders, developers, or program sponsors can highlight the themes or specific talking points that works best for their market. So we've got the built on trust and smart investment, which is a core Energy Star brand promise. Energy efficient construction, which also is part of our primary talking points for the core Energy Star program. And then the next 3 are going to be unique to NextGen. So advanced technologies, provide high performance and premium features. And we've heard loud and clear that the reduced indoor pollutants is going to be a big driver and a big selling point for a lot of folks. So we're looking very closely at how we can make accurate statements in that space. And I'll touch a little bit more on that in the next slide. And then finally, we have the clean energy future suite of talking points, which is impactful for a certain segment of the market. So as I mentioned, we've heard from quite a few stakeholders already that they expect their customers to respond best to the reduced indoor pollutants theme, since health and comfort sell. As a result, we're working with public health experts and scientists within EPA to craft statements that articulate the benefits of NextGen features. While there's more familiarity with carbon monoxide, which is also known as the silent killer, research suggests that nitrogen dioxide emitted from gas cooking appliances has greater health impacts to home cooks and their families. So we've dug into the studies that support the 50 to 400% claims cited in the 2008 oxide of nitrogen intricated science assessment. The values are all average levels over the course of weeks or months, not 1 hour exposure limits, which are much higher. Studies also noted that gas stoves and ranges with pilot lights say that nitrogen dioxide levels increased by an average of about 10 micrograms per cubic meter. So as we continue to learn more, we'll share more statements on this, because again, this is a really big topic for not just this program, but for like the entire building electrification movement. So we're now hard at work finalizing our program's initial collateral material. Here are some examples that are still in draft. But again, our design approach is to borrow from and expand on our existing suite of Energy Star Homes collateral, including projecting the same look and feel. We're not really starting from scratch on branding. So here's another example, this one building off of our trifold template. And again, the gist is that we're trying to position NextGen tightly within the Energy Star brand. So I'm now going to go into a little bit on some initial modeling analysis of emissions reductions. but I'll pause to see if any questions have come up in the last few minutes.
I guess we could bring this one up now. As far as the 45L tax credit is concerned, are there different levels? Like if you go to NextGen, is there more incentives through that, through the 45L? Or are there differences regarding that?
Great question. Yeah, so there are two tiers for the 45L tax credit. The first tier is tied to the base Energy Star program. So $2,500 for a single family home or dwelling unit that meets prevailing wage requirements. And then for multifamily buildings that do not meet prevailing wage requirements, the incentive for meeting Energy Star is $500. So that's the base level. It's tied to Energy Star version 3.2, starting in 2025. Until then, projects can meet Energy Star version 3.1, which is 10% above the 2012-15-18 code. But again, this is for homes and apartments that are acquired starting on or after January 1st, 2025, have to meet version 3.2, which means if you're in the design phase right now, you should be really looking at version 3.2. There is a higher tier for the 45L tax credit, and that's tied not to Energy Star NextGen, but it's tied to the Department of Energy's Zero Energy Ready Homes version 2. DOE recently released their single family version of that program, and their multifamily version just went out for public comment. If it wasn't early this week, then it was late last week. So it's a brand new thing, and DOE is really hoping to fully launch their multifamily program by the end of this year. So NextGen isn't specifically mentioned in 45L, but if you're already going to be doing 45L and doing Energy Star version 2.2, you're going to be, pretty close to the NextGen levels if you're going to be doing heat pumps for space and water heating and electric cooktops. Further, if you're looking at going for the higher incentive tier of Zero Energy Ready homes, that gets you even closer to meeting NextGen because they have requirements in that program for EV charging, which actually exceed the Energy Star NextGen levels, and they have requirements for electric-ready heat pumps, electric-ready water heating. So if you're not doing heat pumps for that, then you have to basically put in electric conduit, which makes doing a gas install more expensive. So it tips the scale towards heat pumps a little bit further. So again, to summarize, NextGen, not part of 45L, however, doing either of the two tiers gets you a good chunk of the way to where we need to get for Energy Star NextGen certification. And while we do believe that NextGen is achievable today, one of our primary goals for this program was to provide a federal, stake in the sand that says this is where industry needs to go to. So if projects want to take a deeper step into energy efficiency by doing the Zero Energy Ready Home program, that's great. That's a good next step after Energy Star. But for projects that want to be looking at deeper operational emissions reductions as their primary motivator, that can only be achieved through efficient electrification, which is NextGen. So that would be a good step beyond Energy Star. Again, we're really trying to provide as harmonious, streamlined approach to pointing out what the future of housing needs to be with these various federal programs, be it Energy Star, Zero Energy Ready Homes, and then finally Energy Star NextGen.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, so thanks for that break. I'm going to next talk about the potential emission reductions that we're seeing in Energy Star NextGen homes. So as I've alluded to a few times, Energy Star NextGen is all about emissions reductions. So it's really important that we can document that the program will deliver results. We've done some preliminary analysis on the estimated impacts of the program requirements and have found some positive outcomes. As you might be aware, ResNet has been working on a new metric called the CO2 rating index. It's a lot like the energy rating index, or ERI in concept, except that it quantifies the relative reduction in emissions rather than the reduction in energy use. So for our analysis, we use the emissions modeling methodology from the CO2 rating index in ANSI ResNet ICC 301 for our initial analysis. And what do we find? The graph on the left is using an all-electric baseline home. About half of all new homes built in the US are built with electric space heating today. The graph on the right is using a mixed fuel baseline home that uses gas for space and water heating. What the graphs are showing you along the y-axis are the national weighted average emissions per home in kilograms of CO2 equivalent. And along the x-axis, we have our three efficiency tiers: the 2021 IECC, Energy Star version 3.2, and then finally Energy Star NextGen. When looking at a comparison between the electric and gas baseline homes, you can see that the absolute average emissions per gas home is much higher for electric homes. It's much higher than for electric homes. The important word that I missed there. Whereas the 2021 IECC resulted in emissions of about 3,200 for electric home, it's closer to 5,000 for the gas home. You can see that the emissions reduction potential from Energy Star version 2.2 is roughly in the same ballpark for gas homes as electric homes. That's about 21% for gas homes versus 16% for electric homes, even though the absolute reduction is much larger. And you can see that when Energy Star NextGen is applied to a gas baseline home, you end up with the same absolute emissions as the program applied to an all-electric home. However, the emissions reduction potential is beyond really anything that we've contemplated before in our program, a weighted average reduction of almost 50%. That's because, in addition to the added efficiency of NextGen that we saw for the electric baseline home, in the case of the gas baseline homes, major end uses have been electrified. So to put a finer point on that, we're taking a new home that was going to use gas for space and water heating, and we're changing out those major end uses with electric heat pumps. So these are national results. We also looked at regional impact. Like what's on the ANSI 302 CO2 rating index, we did this using a new tool called Cambium. The National Renewable Energy Lab maintains this database that contains modeled estimates of what are called long-run marginal emissions rates for the electric sector. Cambium produces these emissions rates under different scenarios and time horizons for 20 generation and assessment regions, which they call GEA regions, which we show here. These GEA regions are reasonably aligned with the e-grid. So what this does is allows us to convert electricity used by a home into equivalent emissions for each region, accounting for predicted changes in each regional electrical grid. I wanted to highlight this because, first off, the electric emissions rates we use in our analysis came from Cambium and are consistent with the CO2 rating index. And second, the results I'm going to show on the next slide are broken out by GEA region. And additional aside, emissions for natural gas don't vary regionally, and we used emissions factors from EPA AP42. So there's a lot of information on this slide, so let me walk you through it. Across the top are the Cambium GEA regions. These are the various electric grid emissions regions used in our analysis. They're arranged from the lowest emission rates on the left, California, to the highest emission rates on the right, Michigan. I have the NWEC highlighted here. That is the New England grid, which Connecticut is part of. Down the left side, we have the climate zones, geographic regions with similar weather conditions. Climate zone 1 is the warmest region, like Florida, and climate zone 7 is the coldest, like North Dakota. Now, of course, not every emissions region falls in every climate zone. So, for example, in climate zone 1, there's only one region, FRCC, which covers Florida. And here, upgrading electric home from the 2021 IECC Energy Star NextGen will reduce emissions by 15%. So we see that for every emissions region in every applicable climate zone, upgrading an electric home from the 2021 IECC to Energy Star NextGen reduces emissions, ranging from 15% to 31%. Connecticut is on the higher end. Depending on the climate zone of your region, you're looking at 29 to 31% emissions reductions. We're seeing that generally savings increase in colder climates, which matches our historical energy savings trends for the program, which have shown higher savings in the north. And we see fairly consistent relative savings across emissions regions within a climate zone. This makes sense for an all-electric baseline. There's no fuel switching going on, and so relative emission savings will correlate with relative energy savings. Since our energy savings won't vary based on how dirty the grid is, our emission savings won't either. Oh, missed some graphics. All right.
Question, we've got
now, yeah.
So using your CO2 rating, would a net zero, all from solar electric home be rated as a zero CO2 emission? Does that make sense?
Yes, it depends. It'll be roughly zero. So if it's truly net zero and it's all electric, it will get a ERI of in the range of zero. And the reason why it may not be exactly zero is because the CO2 rating index is looking at hourly reductions. So if, for example, the home is using electricity when the grid is dirtier, but is net positive when the grid is cleaner, even if the annual electricity usage is zero, their emissions usage or emissions intensity may be like slightly higher or slightly lower than zero. Like that's really, like in my opinion, like the biggest improvement of the CO2 index is that it's again looking at hourly energy use, not just monthly or annual. And that's really the direction that the building industry needs to get to, is looking at not necessarily just reducing energy consumption and emissions on an annual basis, but we need to be looking at reducing it when the grid is dirtiest, because that's going to drive the largest emissions reductions.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking that one. So looking at now a mixed fuel baseline home that's upgraded from the 2021 IC to NextGen. Here's the same chart layout here, just a baseline with gas-based and water heating, the one being upgraded to electric heat pumps. Again, we see that this produces emission savings in all regions, but with much higher emission savings potential. So from 27 to 81%. The national average we showed earlier was 49%. And for the New England grids, the emissions reductions are in the higher end, so basically 58 to 60%, which are some pretty serious numbers. So again, unlike the electric home, with its mixed fuel home, the emission savings are very dependent on how clean the grid is. And this becomes the driver of the savings potential, even more so than climate. In short, the cleaner the grid, the more benefit there is to NextGen, since it's switching on-site gas consumption to grid electricity. So for example, while you can see that the leftmost column, the California grid, which is the cleanest in the country, produces the highest saving potentials. In contrast, the dirtiest grid in the dirtiest region in the country, Michigan, shows significantly fewer savings. That said, emissions reductions of 40 to 40% are still tremendous compared to our traditional efficiency-only approach. And again, for your region, the emissions reductions of NextGen compared to that mixed fuel home are about 60%. So that gives you a little preview of the potential emissions reductions from this new program, using one method for estimating savings, generally aligned with the CO2 rating index methodology. We think these initial results are pretty promising. The The key takeaways are that the national average emissions reduction potential is 24% compared to electric baseline new homes and 49% compared to gas baseline new homes. And it's NextGen's combination of efficiency plus strategic electrification as key to achieving favorable emissions reductions. The US DOE is currently doing additional analysis, and what we've seen of that is confirming the results that I just shared. But once those results are finalized, they'll be published and shared more. And we still have a lot more nuance that we want to look at, including different types of backup fuels and heat pump sizing and complicated matters in that space. So we're anxiously awaiting those results. So a little bit more on 45L since the question already came up and people are very interested in that. As I mentioned, the criteria for the 45L tax credit has been completely redefined and will now be specifically tied to Energy Star certification starting this year for all three new construction sectors, be they single family new homes, multifamily new construction, and new manufactured homes. We also know that a higher credit is available for the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program, which has Energy Star certification as a prerequisite. The tax credit has been extended through 2032, which is really important because for the first time, home builders can actually plan ahead to attain the tax credit rather than wondering whether it will be retroactively extended at the end of the year. Another important feature of the tax credit is that it's tied to the date when the home or dwelling unit is acquired, whereas our program requirements are tied to when a home or unit is permitted. So that's something that you'll need to keep an eye on going forward. And while we certainly continue to keep our partners up to date on any new information we learn about the tax credit, it is the IRS that is responsible for issuing formal guidance on the implementation of the tax credit. So we do have ongoing conversations with them as they develop the guidance, which we're hoping will come out towards the end of this year. So with that preamble, the main points that partners need to know are that, again, single family homes that earn Energy Star certification are eligible for a tax credit of $2,500. And from January of this year through the end of 2024, the requirement is tied to certification or tied to meeting the program requirements of National Version 3.1 or the regional program requirements that are applicable to the home. And then again, beginning January 2025, the requirement scales up to the National Version 3.2 program requirements, regardless of whether that version has been implemented by EPA in the state in which the home is built. And then for multifamily new construction, dwelling units that achieve Energy Star certification are eligible for that tax credit of $2,500. However, this is reduced to $500 per unit if prevailing wage requirements are not met. And as with the single family program, the requirements are designed to scale up over time as EPA develops new program versions. However, the language from multifamily is unfortunately less explicit. So we're seeking clarification from the IRS on some of the finer details of how this will be implemented in practice, including such fundamental questions as what version of Energy Star multifamily? Another clarification that we're trying to suss out is whether certification is actually required or if it's a generic meet program requirements. Our interpretation is that certification is indeed required, but again, it's up to the IRS to fully confirm what the development and building community needs to show to demonstrate compliance with the tax credit. And again, circling back to NextGen, this relates because if you're already building to Energy Star version 2.2 or Zero Energy Ready Homes, it just makes the difference to NextGen certification much smaller, as you'll only need to include the 3 or 4 features, some of which you're hopefully doing already. And then another question that we get a pretty fair amount of is how NextGen and DOE's Zero Energy Ready Home program play together. And I touched on this a little bit more earlier. But EPA and DOE, have always worked closely together on our programs, and we are continuing to work closely as both the agencies consider the future of the residential new construction programs and as we chart the path towards zero emission buildings. We're committed to ensuring that our programs continue to work well together to provide value for both builders and home buyers. And while both programs will require Energy Star version 2.2 as a mandatory feature, again, there's no direct connection between NextGen and Zero Energy Ready homes. Again, that program will continue to push for additional efficiency improvements and indoor air quality protections beyond Energy Star, while getting them to electrify at a future date, while NextGen focuses on more direct operational emissions day one through the strategic electrification. But again, as I mentioned, buildings that do decide to go towards Zero Energy Ready Homes version 2, in part to get that $5,000 rebate, and if they install heat pumps for space and water heating, they'll be quite close to meeting Energy Star NextGen already, which is great. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, the strategic electrification of end uses is key to decarbonizing the residential construction sector. Many states have realized this and have not only put in place renewable portfolio standard legislation, which requires the electricity in their states to be 100% carbon free by specific dates, but they're beginning to pass energy codes that either require electrification or incentivize electric space and water heating to such a degree that it's very hard to justify putting in gas appliances, which is what Washington State is doing as an example. And taking this one step further, on September 22nd of last year, the California Air Resources Board unanimously approved the ban of sale of new natural gas-fired space heaters and water heating appliances by 2030. And our team has actually had many dozens of conversations with gas and electric utilities across the country over the past year or two about Energy Star NextGen. Most have been extremely interested in the specification as it aligns with their emission reduction plans. And for some that have to deal with tenuous public utility commissions, they believe that creating incentives for home and apartments that certify to Energy Star NextGen allows them to incentivize measures such as a bundle that they cannot incentivize as individual members, such as EV charging infrastructure. And since NextGen doesn't explicitly prohibit gas hookups, we've also seen some positive responses from gas utilities that are trying to chart a path forward. So in short, we believe it's in the leading builders and developers' best interest to prepare for the inevitable heat pump revolution by getting comfortable with the technology before it comes mandated. So what can builders do to prepare for when the program launches, hopefully later this year? You can start by reviewing the program requirements that we finalized earlier in May of 2022. You can find them at energystar.gov/nextgenhomes or on the main program requirements page on the Energy Star website. You can also feel free to reach out to me if your organization is interested in learning more. And with that, I'll end and see if there's any final questions that have come in. Really appreciate your time and interest here.
We got one here from someone in the audience. Why doesn't electric radiant heat play a role in the program?
Question. So it's really going to depend on how that electric is powered. So if it's just electric resistance, that does not do well on the efficiency side. It's the heat pumps that are needed to power the electric space heating that deliver, COPs of, 2.5 or 3 or greater. It's not at a more fundamental level. We can't just simply, electrify. We have to efficiency electrify, which is why we have to have both efficient envelopes and efficient heat pumps for space and water heating. You can't just do one or the other.
Great, thank you. We got another one here. They said they're an architect. How do we enter our AIA number to receive the CEUs?
Yeah, that'll be, I can answer that one. I will be sending out a survey to everyone in the audience who would like to get AIA CEUs. We did get this approved by AIA Connecticut, so that should be coming out in a couple days in an email. So if you want those credits, make sure to fill out this survey. But yeah, any last questions for Aza? Please put them in the chat. Let's see.
We got one more in there that maybe you could answer, Anna.
Yeah, that's a question for me. I'm reading. Yeah, we will, if you want a certificate of completion, also send in an email to the Passive House Training Connecticut at icf.com. Email. Any last questions? Last call for Aza? No? Lots of thank yous in the chat. Informative session. Okay, then I guess that's it. Thank you, Aza, for a great presentation. We learned a lot. And once again, this presentation was brought to you on behalf of the sponsors of Energize Connecticut. And this was recorded, so we will also share through an email link recording to see the video if anyone is interested. So yeah, thank you again, Aza. Thank you, Nate. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Great.
We will end it here. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye.